Stop wholesaling short sales without watching this video first. Guys, my name is Rick Kim, and today I'm going to go over someone who got in trouble doing wholesaling and short sales. I'm going to show you what got him caught, and most importantly, show you things you can do so you never get in this type of hot water. But before I get into it, do me a favor, make sure you smash that like button, hit that subscribe button so other people can find the truth out about wholesaling. So this just came in a couple days ago that the short sale queen, Nicole Espinosa, has been indicted on multiple charges, basically conspiracy to commit fraud by doing short sales, specifically in real estate investing. And I want to read from the Department of Justice. This isn't from TMZ. It says Nicole Espinosa, known as the short sale queen, and her associates were indicted by the federal government on November 20th, 24. Charges related to mortgage fraud scheme in the Eastern District of Texas. 2 counts indictment charges with conspiracy to commit wire fraud affecting financial institutions and submitting false statements to a federally insured financial institution. Now, why is this important? Because I want you to understand. Now, remember, these are alleged and everybody has their day in court. I don't know Nicole, any of her staff. I've never had any dealings with it, but she's the proclaimed short sale queen. And guys, for the record, I stopped doing short sales in 2011 because they came out with all sorts of documentation paperwork I'm going to show you with it. Basically discourages any wholesaler from doing a short sale. And honestly, it just doesn't even make sense. So the first thing you got to understand is, why are they going after the short sale queen and they're looking at 30 years? It seems like wildly excessive. It does to me. Don't get me wrong, I'm not endorsing what they did, but 30 years. And you got to understand, the reason is there's this thing called Fannie. Let me spell it. Mac. And what does that mean? Well, this is the federal government. And so here's what the federal government does. They own Fannie and Freddie, which is basically you and me. And they're called backed securities. And why is that important and why do you need to know that? Because the government insures, just so you know, about 75% of all mortgages in the US. The reason they do that is so banks will lend more freely and there is more capital available for regular people to get home loans, the staple of the United States economy. So they created the Fannie and Freddie. One focuses more on commercial, one's more on residential. I'm not going to get into the details, but 75%. So what happens is the bank do the loans and then they sell them to the United States government. They get their money back and they make money on the fees. It's important you understand that because since it is a government-backed security, any type of manipulation or anything you do that's illegal or misrepresented, and definitely fraud, is you're taking on the federal government. And listen, when you take on the federal government, it is unlimited reserves. They rarely lose. And for that reason, this is the main reason you don't want to do short sales. Now, keep in mind, this has to do with anything with conventional financing. So the safe spot for all wholesalers is always going to be in cash. Why? Because you don't deal with Fannie and Freddie. And if you violate any terms with the federal government, it is a big deal. And they can go after you per offense and stack up something like the short sale queen of 30 years. I don't want that to happen to you. So what you have to understand is the biggest risk you have with short sales is basically what they call a short sale, make sure I spell this right, affidavit. And basically what this says, it is a document that says you do one wrong thing, we're going to nail you. You have to, the buyer has to sign it, which is you, the investor, the seller has to sign it, the real estate agent has to sign it, and the title company has to sign it. And if there's any type of violation, you can risk federal charges and be a criminal offense. This is why I hate short sales. So you got to understand, back when I did it way back then, these documents were not nearly as pronounced as they are now. And now they're going to make examples out of people. Why? It's the federal government and they want to discourage it, because we have to understand a short sale is when they discount the mortgage. So if the property has a $200,000 mortgage, but now in today's market, maybe it went backwards worth $150,000. If they short sale it, then the government is going to take a $50,000 deduction. If they feel that's the fair market value, they'll accept it if they decide to do the short sale. But if it's manipulated and coerced by a coordinated conspiracy theme, then this can really add up to be billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in the US government. So they've cracked down on what they call the short sale affidavit. And here, so you can Google short sale affidavit, look it up. Listen, do not try to do a wholesale deal with a short sale, because you are going to violate one of these agreements. Look it up. I'm just going to give you the highlights. Number one, arm's length. What does this mean? It means you can't be related to anybody in the transaction. They can't be business partners. They can't be brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, nothing. If they are, you're in violation and you could be committing a criminal offense. Does everybody understand that? The next thing is you have to submit legitimate proof of funds. You have to submit a legitimate purchase and sales agreement. Like, Rick, why is that so difficult? Because a lot of you guys butcher these. And when you submit a purchase and sale agreement and a proof of funds to the United States government, if you falsify one tiny little increment of it or you cut and paste it, you are violating the terms of it and you could be criminally liable. And a lot of people on this part right here get it all the time. You can't do conspiracy. What does that mean? It means you can't work with the realtor, you can't work with the seller and manipulate to where your contract gets favorable attention. That's where most short sales wind up, and that's what happens in wholesaling. Also, there's a 90-day deed restriction. Why? To discourage you. This right here takes you out in wholesaling. This is why you don't wholesale short sales. Oh, I can sell the LLC, I can do that. Listen, if you sign this short sale affidavit and you try a manipulation of that 90-day restriction, you are at risk of committing a criminal offense. Don't do it. So that gets us to the next thing is there's also what we call a realtor obligation. And they're going to hold the realtor to the same standards on the short sale affidavit, meaning they have to bring it to market and find the fair value no matter what. And they can't favor your contract over the other. If not, you put your realtors, your brokers at violation. And for this reason alone, you guys shouldn't seek out people to try to conspire to commit any type of short sale fraud. You don't want to do it. Now, lastly, you have to understand is all these survive forever. What does that mean? If somebody comes back to you 20 years later and proves you violated one of these, you're in trouble. So there's no statutes of limitations, none of that. Short sale wholesaling just doesn't work for all the things I have put right here. And you got to understand, if you're going to do any type of manipulation and you sign that short sale affidavit, which you have to, you could wind up like the short sale queen. Now, once again, I don't know her. I don't know the validity of the charges. All I did is read from the Department of Justice. So understand that. My job here today is to make sure you don't get in trouble doing wholesaling. I teach wholesaling. One of the cardinal rules is if we don't deal with conventional financing, as long as you disclose everything between your buyer and seller, you should be fine. But once you bring in someone who's going to loan the money and backed by the federal government, you've got to play by the rules. There's no exception to this, and if you deviate slightly, you could be at risk. I want to prevent that for you today and understand. So if we understand that, I'm going to erase this here and show you the next part you need to understand. So a lot of people have mixed up saying, well, the short sales are illegal. You can't do them, and wholesaling's next on the list. Listen, wholesaling deals with cash. And long as two parties agree and everybody signs and consents, you should be fine. You have to still follow your state and federal laws. There's no exception to that. But here's what most people screw up and they don't understand about wholesaling. You can do wholesaling legal. You just have to read the rules. And they're kind of constantly they change. They've been changing since 2003. So, legal wholesaling. I've already told you, do not do the short sales for wholesaling. It's not going to work. Trust me on this one. Here's where you get in trouble. Here's what most people understand. They go, oh, wholesaling is illegal. Here's the bottom line. If you commit fraud, there's already laws on the book that says it's highly illegal and it's a criminal act. So let me preface this by, if you get a fraud charged against you and it's proven in a court of law, it attaches to you like a judgment. Like, well, okay, Rick, well, I get a $10,000 judgment. No. Let me explain. Number one, it will destroy your reputation and your credibility. Number two, it sticks with you forever. It survives bankruptcy. It's as bad as a student loan with a much worse connotation, and nobody wants to work with anyone who commits fraud. Here's the two biggest things most people commit fraud, and it's just illegal. And here's the funny thing is, it doesn't matter if you're in the insurance business, the wholesaling business, the retail business, fraud is fraud, and you have to understand that. So, if you forge, if you alter, and for those of you that are Photoshop experts, if you manipulate anything, that is considered fraud. Fraud is a criminal offense. This is particular to wholesaling, insurance, retail, automotive, it doesn't matter. Do you understand that? Everybody understand, you can't do that. Number two, you can't commit conspiracy. What's conspiracy? It's when more than two parties get together to manipulate a transaction in their favor, where someone gets to take advantage of either the federal government, it could be the seller, it could be the buyer. You can't do that. Realtors get accused of this all the time, and we have to understand. There is nothing illegal about wholesaling. You see, what they're accusing the short sale queen of is fraud. And fraud's always been on the books, and if you're going to lie, forge, manipulate, alter documents, and hide material facts, fraud is going to nail you every time. So guys, remember when I said anytime you bring in conventional financing of any type on a third-party bank, any information you conceal, material facts, if anybody instructs you to exclude information or keep it private, it's what you call fraud. So just be aware of it and understand it. So what I want to do is flip the board over, and I want to give you solid advice so it keeps you out of trouble. So I've been wholesaling for 22 years. Trust me, at some point you will be tempted. Someone's going to hit your greed button, and I'm going to give you boundaries so you don't get taken advantage of. So everybody understand, wholesaling is perfectly legal. There are laws against how you market for them, but for the most part, you can do short sales. They just don't have a home in wholesaling because they need to get the highest and best offer. Occasionally, a cash offer is the best deal for a problematic property, but because of the short sale affidavit, I just stay away from short sales. The writing was on the wall back in 2010, 2011, and honestly, they've even made it tougher today than ever. So, how do we prevent it? Let's flip over here real quick. I'm going to first start off and tell you what are risky real estate deals associated with wholesaling, and the idea is to prevent you. So I saw the handwriting on the short sales way back in 2005-06. And honestly, I think short sales, they just do not fit in wholesaling anymore at all. So don't do them. It's that simple. Now, a lot of you guys talk about doing novations, and I'm telling you, novations are where short sales were back in 2005-06. They are frowned upon. In my opinion, they are complete manipulation, and you take no equitable interest and you take giant profits. As we speak right now in the state of Florida, novations are severely frowned upon, and I'll show you why. Now, I didn't invent novations, nobody else invented novations, but people are using strategies novations, and they're just manipulating paperwork. Just because you can make money doing something doesn't mean it's legal. Just because you made money on 5 or 6 closing with a novation doesn't make it legal. What happens is once they figure out what's going on, which the title companies and the underwriters have already figured it out, they're going to red flag these deals. So Remember, Novations, keep in mind, they have a federally backed insured mortgage on it. So if you commit any of the stuff we talked about earlier, you could be at risk on Novations, and I'll show you why. Now, I want to come over here. The next thing is so this is my opinion. I'm trying to prevent any type of problems, but I want you to focus on wholesaling. Don't do short sale flips. They don't work because you're going to violate the short sale affidavit. And Novations, in my opinion, you're manipulating documents. It's just the bottom line. And anyone who conspires to help you do it is going to go down with you if they decide to pursue it. They've already reached out to me, my title company, and they're trying to figure out, because I have to solve more novation issues than ever. And I believe they're going to find a way to basically limit them. Plus, they got a 60% failure ratio. That's the other reason I don't like Novations. Pairing up with a distressed homeowner I think it's just a really bad formula. It's an interesting strategy in theory, but the reality is replacing a contract. Say you put under $100,000, they're fine with that, and you find a buyer for $150,000. You have to put that same contract in front of the seller, and 50% of them are going to hit the green button on you. So, real estate documents that put you at risk in any type of real estate investment. So I'm talking about wholesaling, short sales, novations, anything you do. If you do any of these, I want you to be aware of it because it's important to understand. Now, first one, short sale affidavit. I've already gone over that. If you do a short sale affidavit, you are bound by the law, and if you commit any of the offenses, they're going to get you per item. Now, the short sale queen, they're going after her for 88 properties. They probably got a couple violations on each one of them. That's how they rack up this like 30 years. 30 years seems crazy to me, but so don't do them. Don't sign them, because if you do it, if you're going to sign it, submit your cash offer. Make sure you have the money for it and walk away from it. Odds are it's going to fail anyways because wholesalers don't pay market price. That's why short sales don't work for me. The next one, POF, proof of funds. Rick, how can I be that? A lot of you guys manipulate these. Sorry, this is why me and Zach don't provide you templates on proof of funds. Why? Because they need to be legitimate. They need to come from a bank. They need to come from a lender. They need to come from a private money person. They need to come from a hard money person or your cash partner. If you decide to go in a Word document and manipulate it and change it, you are committing fraud. And remember, when you commit fraud, you're breaking the law. It's not a wholesaling law. It is a national law. You cannot do that because you're lying. Next one, EMD, earnest money deposit. Wait a minute, Rick, I do those all the time. That's great. A lot of you put down $100, but you never leave $100. If it was $200, $500, $1,000, if you're going to do earnest money deposit, you have to follow the contract. Now, a smart investor will say 3 or 7 days upon acceptance of the contract or after the contingency period, however you want to do it. But you actually have to bring the money over to the title company and you get an earnest money letter that documents when you left the deposit, what property it's for, and it's dated and stamped. A lot of you think you can go back in time on an EMD. You can't. Your EMD, honestly, if you don't do it, it's going to kill more deals and your sellers don't think you're legitimate. Guys, if you're going to leave an EMD, have a deal with your title company and make sure you leave money on file and you earmark it. You can't just leave a wad of money over there. You have to have a separate EMD letter for each deal. Why? Because if your deal's ever challenged in court in any capacity, EMD is the easiest thing to bust through because most people don't do it. So I've learned this the hard way. The next one is a power of attorney or a limited power of attorney. I want you to understand the key word here is attorney. Don't ever do these forms without an attorney. If you're doing novations, someone taught you to do these forms, you record them on your own and you want to know why you have problems. So power of attorneys has this little thing called a fiduciary responsibility. So if an attorney doesn't do it, you take on the liability. And if you're working with a distressed homeowner and you're rewriting a contract, you're signing MLS agreements, you're doing fiduciary responsibility to yourself, not to your seller. And if you ever stand in front of a court without an attorney helping you with this, it's going to be a problem because you have to record these on record. And here's another little secret. Most title companies will not accept non-family members or non-lawyers as a power of attorney or a limited power of attorney. This is a huge red flag to the title company. There's going to be a problem. Once you record a power of attorney or show it, they're going to question everything you have on it. Guys, power of attorneys are to help people when they can't make decisions on their own or if someone's incapacitated or sick. They were never designed for investors to take advantage and manipulate a situation. I don't like power of attorneys. They have their place, but I'm going to be honest with you, with Novations, I think they're mostly abused. Next one, you guys that post pics online. Remember, we're wholesalers. What do? We sell contracts. If you want to sell real estate and property, you need to get a real estate license, and you got to just stop mass sending out your deals on the pictures. You sell your contracts. If you don't know how to do it, go over to freewholesaling.com. We teach you the difference. I don't want to be a realtor. You want to be a realtor, go find a guru that tells you to go get your realtor's license, and you can sell pretty little properties on the internet. I sell contracts. I sell great deals. The next one, public recordings. Rick, where are you going with this? If you record a lien, especially if you do it with a novation and someone taught you how to do that, I'm here to tell you, you're probably breaking multiple laws. Sorry. Did you know a lien, as a wholesaler, a real estate investor, you do not have a legitimate interest in recording a lien. You are not a licensed contractor. You're not a licensed attorney. So one of the techniques I've seen in Novations, I don't think they all do it, but they're like, how do we pay the investor? And they go, we'll record a lien because the bank has to pay the liens. And they're correct. Most of the time the banks pay it. But here's what they do. They record the lien like a day or 30 days before the closing, and they make it for an absorbent amount. So if they think they're going to make 50 grand, they record it for double for like 100K. And when you record that lien, the problem is, if that lien was ever challenged in court or challenged with an underwriter, they're going to tell you to prove up your lien. Well, how as an investor do I prove you owe me 50 grand on it? I wrote it 100K, I'll discount it. This is the problem. A real estate fee, a real estate investor, their profit is not something that you can record a lien against. And in a lot of states, it's illegal and can actually get you in legal hot water for damaging somebody's title. So anyone who tells you to record a lien without services rendered, meaning in addition to the house, they put solar panels on it, and without consent. Now, don't get me wrong, you all get consent on it, but it's completely illegal. And any judge or attorney wants to challenge it, they're going to tell you to prove up your lien. Your lien's going to be considered invalid, and most likely it's fraudulent because wholesalers, real estate investors, we don't record liens for profit. It's completely illegal. You can't do that. You have to render a service, most likely with a license, and you have to prove up all your supplies and your time. How do I prove up $50,000? You can't do it. The next one, memorandums. That's right. Any of you guys who record stuff against property, affidavit of equitable interest, any of this stuff, you should always use a lawyer when you do this. If you do it yourself, you are risking a massive lawsuit because once you record something on record, being a lien, a memorandum, or an affidavit, especially without a lawyer, you can get countersued for damages. Defamation of title. You don't believe me? There's lawsuits everywhere. Guys, recording memorandums is really bad business. You're better off communicating with your sellers. I get it. Some of us get screwed over. It's usually in your best interest to move on. Because once you start going down the memorandums, it can get really ugly. And if you don't know what you're doing, and especially if you didn't use a lawyer, you could be at massive risk for it. When it comes to affidavits, whenever you have to sign an affidavit, there's some people who record affidavits against the property. You have to swear to tell the truth, get it notarized. And if it's falsified or it's slander, once again, you can risk a defamation lawsuit. I see more affidavits being recorded. And guys, the last one is when it comes to any type of conventional financing, I don't care if it's Fannie or Freddie. If someone's getting a loan from a bank and anyone tells you to exclude any type of information like, hey, I have a private agreement with the seller and I'm going to write a second mortgage 5 minutes after we fund the first, it is 100% fraud. And that technique will get you in trouble. Because if the bank knew that material information, they would never give the loan. So I see people all the time, don't tell them this. Anyone who tells you not to say something or exclude it, it's going to get you in massive trouble. Why? Because if it ever comes up, maybe the loan goes in default, maybe the seller had a beef with you and they decide to say, hey, listen, I got to tell you about something that the buyer told me to do and it made me uncomfortable. Listen, if it makes you slightly uncomfortable, I promise you it makes the other party uncomfortable. When people lean into you and tell you to exclude, hide, or not say something, it is usually going to get you in big trouble. So the last thing I'm going to leave you with you is just teach you a little technique I've learned over the last 22 years to keep me out of hot water in wholesaling. Number one, it's called the common sense test. So if you get excited with short sale flips or novations, or someone goes, hey, I got a strategy. Another one I'm gonna write on here too is a lot of people talk to you about, recording a trust. Trusts are complicated and they require an attorney. Trusts are infamous for hiding material facts, especially from banks, especially from buyers and sellers. And if you do not understand trust and you don't work with an attorney, you could be at massive violation. So I'm gonna put short sales, novations, and trust. It doesn't mean you can't use a trust, but you've got to understand and you have to execute it perfectly, because if not, you are going to be liable. So my common sense test, number one, your gut feeling. Does something not feel right when you're doing a transaction? Does it make you uneasy? Usually your gut feeling is correct. Don't ignore it. If somebody tells you to ignore it, they're just trying to facilitate your greed button, and understanding nothing is worth going to jail for 30 years for. No transaction in real estate. We all agree with that. I don't want anybody in jail. Number two, if you decide to move forward, do you understand it? Honestly, ask yourself, do I understand what I'm doing? Do I truly understand it? And if you don't, I want you to go to question number 3 on the common sense test. Did you consult a real estate lawyer? And at this point, if you decide to move forward because you skipped 1 and 2 and 3 of Rick's common sense rules, I'm going to go to number 4 because you need to prepare for it. Could you explain the transaction to a judge? Because that's what's going to happen if you skip 1, 2, and 3. You're going to be standing in front of a judge and you say, Mr. Ginn, tell me what you wanted to accomplish with this transaction. And if you go into a long-winded explanation and you particularly don't understand it, you're going to be guilty. And guys, remember, if you commit fraud, you hide material facts, you basically lie to people, or you forge or alter documents, fraud is against the law. It is not a wholesaling crime. It is a crime of humans, period. It's through the entire world. So a lot of people mix up what's illegal and what's not. I believe what happened to Short Sale Queen is they're accusing of altering documents and manipulating stuff, but they'll have their day in court. What I want to do today is make sure you prevent it. So make sure you understand what the risky deals are, the documents that can put you at risk, and most importantly, do the common sense test. Most of you need to just stop at 1. But if you get all the way down to 4, make sure you can explain to the judge what's going on. Because this is what happens if you ignore steps 1 through 3. I don't want that to happen to anybody. Guys, listen, don't wholesale short sale deals. They don't work. They've been discouraged for over 12 years now, and they're going to make examples of anybody who moves forward that doesn't do a legitimate transaction. Guys, wholesaling's legal. You can make a ton of money on it. Stay away from government-backed loans because they don't really work in wholesaling. So guys, I want to keep you legal. I want to keep you safe. This video is not to scare you. It's just to give you boundaries in case you get tempted with a deal. Honestly, you're going to be tempted as a wholesaler. Stay within the boundaries. Nothing's worth going to jail for you. Guys, don't do short sale wholesales. They do not work. There's plenty of legitimate business. Go out there and get it. Guys, let me know in the comments if you've gotten the message loud and clear. Remember, this is just my opinion. You should always consult a real estate lawyer to get the facts of how to follow the laws in your state and federally. Everybody should do it. I strongly advise it. And guys, I want you to last as a wholesaler. This is why I'm giving you information. Sprinters do things quick and they go to jail. Marathon people, they just take longer to get it done, but they do it the right way and they build bigger and better dreams for everybody around them. And I want that to be you. So let me know in the comments if you're going to keep your business legal and stay out of these short sales. And as usual, if you got value from this video, do me a favor, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button so other people can find the truth out about wholesaling. This is Rick Ginn. I'll see you in the next video.